Milkweed Chapter 26. She stood gaping. The rest of the city. It's still here. I ran to her. I pulled the armband from her sleeve and stuffed it into her coat pocket. I did the same with my own. See, you made me forget. I stomped off. It was not good to be seen near the wall. I took the sidewalks. I heard her footsteps behind me. I walked fast. Maybe I couldn't stop her from following me, but I had no intention of making her a full partner. Soon we were among the people, the source of the voices and sounds that came drifting over the wall. In the ghetto, all was gray. The people were gray. The sounds were gray. The smells were gray. Here, everything was colors to me. The red clang of the streetcars, blue music from phonographs, silver laughter of people. In the distance, the toodles of the merry-go-round were a swirl of colors. Whenever I came through the wall, I wanted to do nothing but walk the streets. I remembered Yuri's words. Don't look guilty. I swaggered down the sidewalk. I headed straight for other pedestrians and made them veer around me. I whistled. In other words, I ignored Yuri's other commands. Don't call attention to yourself. Be invisible. Or maybe I heeded a little. I resisted the temptation to put the blue and white armband back on. I was proud to be part of the Milgram family, proud to be a Jew. I wanted to wave my armband and shout, "Hey, everyone, look at me. I'm a Jew, a filthy son of Abraham." But I didn't. I heard Janina whistling behind me. I went to my favorite place. It was a hotel for jackboots. Jackboots ate there and drank beer and slept there. A blue neon sign in the shape of a camel blinked off and on above the revolving door. I did what I always did. I went in the revolving door and around and right back outside again. Janina did it too, but she didn't stop after once around. I jerked her away. I went around back. Garbage cans as tall as me were lined up like soldiers. As usual, the lids were off and several children were poking through the stench and maggots. They were too busy to notice me. The hatch door leading to the food cellar was locked as usual. There were several windows at ground level. There were steel bars in front of the glass. I knelt before one of the windows. I pushed it open. I took off my coat and tossed it inside. I turned myself sideways and squeezed between two of the bars and dropped headfirst into the dimly lit cellar. I thought nothing of it. I lived in the cracks of that the world made for large, slow people. I was bending over my coat. Janina's coat hit me on the rump. She came tumbling down in a flurry of underwear. "Ow!" she squawked. "Be quiet," I told her. "You should have stayed home." I pulled the sack from my pocket and unfolded it. "What's that for?" she said. "Food," I said. "I don't have one." "Too bad." "Where's the pickled eggs?" "They don't have any. Not that I would have known a pickled egg if I saw one." She swept a large coffee can from a shelf. It crashed to the floor. I balled my fist in front of her face. "Stop it. They're going to hear." She jabbed her chin at me. "I don't like you." "Well, I don't like you." "Good," she said, and stomped off among the shelves, searching for pickled eggs. I began making my rounds. There was one problem with the Blue Camel Hotel food cellar. Much of the food was in cans and jars too big and heavy to carry a long way, so I concentrated on smaller, lighter things. There were wooden bins of onions and lettuces and turnips and cabbages. There were boxes of soda crackers and stacked loaves of brown and black bread. There were gray, ancient dried fish and jellies and potatoes sprouting wigs of grass. I avoided the cold locker of fresh meats as we had no way to cook them, but shriveled clubs of sausage were perfect. I filled my sack and headed for my treat. Although the jars of fruit and vegetables were too big to carry, who was to say I could not help myself from them right there in the food cellar? I pulled out from a dusty corner my personal jar of peaches in syrup. The jar was almost as big around as myself. I unscrewed the lid and grabbed a peach. "What's that?" came Janina's voice at my shoulder. "What's it look like?" I stuffed the peach into my mouth. "I want one." She reached. I smacked her hand. "They're mine." She balled her fist. leaned back, and screamed, "I'm hungry!" I grabbed another peach and stuffed it into her mouth. "Here!" I quick closed the jar and shoved it back just as a door opened and light flooded from above. Footsteps came partway down the stairway and stopped. A voice said, "Hello? Hello?" We crouched by the fruit jars, our cheeks bulging, peach juice streaming from our chins. "Hello?" At last the footsteps went away and the door closed. I pushed a crate under the window and climbed onto it. I shoved the stuffed sack and then myself through the bars. Even standing on the crate, Janina could not reach, so I had to help haul her out. Going back, I lugging the sack over my shoulder, we stayed in the shadows and alleyways until the final dash across the moonlight to the 2-brick space and onto the other side. Another dash across the moonlight and back into the shadows. I headed for the orphanage. Dr. Korzak always left a window unlocked in the back. I opened it and dumped in half of the contents of my sack. "What are you doing?" said Janina. "Feeding the orphans," I told her. "You're supposed to feed us." I was tired of her crabbing. I feed whoever I want to feed. I slammed the window shut and headed home. Chapter 27. The next day I visited the boys. I knew I would find them in their new place, an alley behind a fire-gutted butcher shop. Before I got there, I could hear them, a whacking sound followed by cheers, and again whack, then cheers. What was happening? I turned the corner. Big Henrik was holding Kuba upside down by his ankles, while Ferdy walloped Kuba's rump with a big bone, one of the many that were lying around. Ferdy stopped when he saw me. "Misha, come on, knock out your lice." Then I saw. Each time Ferdy walloped Kuba, a tiny blizzard, like salt, fell from Kuba's hair to the ground. With every blow, Kuba swung back and forth like a pendulum of a grandfather clock. When it was over, Kuba took the bone from Ferdy. He said, "Your turn, Mish." Just because he made me think of it, my head was itching more than ever. I could feel them crawling. I got down on all fours in front of Big Henrik. In a moment, I was hanging upside down, staring at his knees. "Get ready," said Kuba. And then I heard Ferdy's voice. "Wait, the book." Ferdy stuffed a book down my pants, and the world shook as Kuba gave me the first wallop. Another voice came screaming, "Stop it! Stop it!" I twisted my head as best I could and saw Janina attacking Kuba, kicking him, punching him. Ferdy grabbed her, held her flailing. "I'm not hurting him," said Kuba. "Who is this?" said Enos. "This is Janina," I said as Kuba swung the bone. Then between wallops, "My sister." By the time Kuba was done with me, Janina was yapping, Me! She was heading for Big Henrik when Enos says, "You can't have a girl in a dress hanging upside down. She needs pants." I was the littlest, so I was elected. I took off my pants and gave them to Janina. I stuffed in the book and went upside down she went. Kuba started walloping again. With each spank, she gave a yelp and a laugh. I had a thought. Maybe her angel will come out. This was my latest information from the boys on angels. Every person carries his or her own angel inside. When the rest of you is killed, the angel comes out and flies off to heaven. When I asked where heaven is, everyone had a different answer. Kuba said Russia. Oleg said Washington, America. Enos said, "You're all stupid. It's right here, Warsaw, the other side of the wall." As I watched Janina's little body jump with every spank, I couldn't imagine the angel inside her putting up with such a disturbance. I stared and stared, but nothing came out of her but yelps and laughs and lice. Kuba finally stopped. Janina was begging for more. She wouldn't give up my pants. Everyone laughed as I chased her around the rubble, the book bouncing in the pants like a load of horse flop. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. I turned around. 4 people were standing at the corner of the charred butcher shop. Everyone, even Janina, stopped and stared at them. There were 2 couples. The men were jackboots. Their buttons glinted like morning stars on their uniforms. The ladies were blonde-haired and wore little white hats and white gloves. All 4 of them were smiling. One of the jackboots was holding something. It was black. I was pretty sure it was a gun or a weapon. I wondered, why aren't we running? And then I saw a movement. Janina was walking towards them. I called out, "Janina, no!" Still smiling, the jackboot raised the weapon. He held it up to his eye, aiming it at her. "No!" I charged into the jackboot. He didn't budge. He reached down with his free hand and tossed me aside. He aimed again, threw the weapon at Janina, and I heard click. Enos called, "Misha, stop! It's a camera! It takes pictures!" I didn't know what he was talking about, but I backed off. The man with the camera aimed and clicked again. Beside me, Janina was doing a dance in the dust and smiling at the cameraman, saying, "Do it again! Again!" The couples were no longer just smiling, they were laughing out loud. The ladies were clinging to their man's arms to keep from falling over with laughter. Then one of the ladies pinched her nose, and the other pinched her nose, and they laughed louder, and the cameraman took more pictures. And the more they laughed and took pictures, the faster Janina danced and laughed. The dust she kicked up fell on their shoes. When the laughing died down, Janina stepped forward. She walked up to one of the ladies and said, "Do you live on the other side?" The lady did not answer. She just looked down and smiled. Then Janina reached out and touched the skirt of the lady's black and white checkerboard dress. The lady's smile vanished. She stepped back from Janina's reach. She looked down at the dust on her white shoes. She said something to the others. The smiles came back. The man taking pictures gave the camera to his lady. He motioned to Janina and me to stand side by side. He stood behind us. I could feel him smiling. He was close, but he never touched us. He said something to the lady. She aimed and clicked. Maybe they'll shoot us now, I thought. But they didn't. They merely went away. As they were leaving, I called, "Aren't you going to shoot us?" They didn't respond. Enos hurried over. "Stupid gypsy!" He smacked the back of my head. "Learn to shut your stupid mouth." I wished Yuri was there. I preferred that he do the smacking. "Who were they?" said Ferdy. "Soldiers with their girlfriends," said Enos, "out for a stroll in the ghetto. It's Sunday." "What's Sunday?" I said. Enos sneered. "The day they don't shoot you." Back on the streets, we saw other soldiers and girlfriends strolling about. The jackboot ladies wore white gloves. I could not stop staring at the gloves. They were whiter than snow.